Hi, good morning, everyone. So glad to be meeting you all. So glad to welcome you to the Career Transformation series by Admit Square. And here we chat with alumni from different business schools, understand how their career has shaped post MBA. And happy to introduce you all from Oxford class of Oxford Saïd Business School class of 2015. So it's a good mini reunion here. And thank you, Dave. Thank you, Anubhav and Aniket, for joining us. We'll soon get to understanding your profile and your career post MBA. So can we start with understanding or understanding your profile before you got into your MBA program, and what you think was key factor in choosing Oxford? Because of course, when you apply or think of business schools, then there is, as an Indian, you think of ISB or you think of some of the top schools in the US. And Oxford, no doubt, remains a dream school for several Indians, specifically because of its strong brand. But how did you go about choosing the right school or choosing the set of schools that you wanted to get into in the context of your own profiles? So maybe we start in the alphabetical order. Aniket, maybe.
Sure. For me, it was about, I was looking at it as an investment that would sort of yield returns over a longer horizon. So I think I didn't want something that would necessarily just give me the best job right after graduation. And from that standpoint, at least, Oxford is something that I figured had a sort of longer payback period in terms of, like you correctly pointed out, things like the reputation of the industry, of the university, the sort of image that it holds in a country like India. And also, I think I was specifically sort of what appealed to me was the diversity that the university has to offer as well. It wasn't just a pure play MBA or a B school that I was looking to get into, but I wanted to see how I could also benefit from the larger university, and all those factors specifically.
Right. So, Aniket, if you could also add what was your profile pre-MBA, and whether you were looking to come back to India, and was there something on your mind, or how did you relate it to your own profile?
Sure. So I had about 6 years of experience pre-MBA, 4.5 years of which was in finance, and I was actually looking to, and my longer objective was to anyway get back into finance, but more to look at it from the investment side into the whole startup space. So I did 4.5 years of finance, and I also spent a year in an unfunded startup prior to my MBA. And I actually utilized I wanted to get into a university that would sort of bridge my past experience with what I wanted to do in the future, which is sort of get further operational experience in the whole startup space, and then eventually get back into finance to understand how I can play a larger part in the industry. So from that standpoint, at least, I think the whole program that Oxford was offering was worked well for my profile. I think specifically the whole emphasis that they gave to experiential learning, where it wasn't just theoretical aspects that you sort of get in the classroom, but also a lot of opportunities uh, to demonstrate it while actually doing your studies sort of appealed to me, and those are some of the reasons why this was one of the top universities that I wanted to apply.
Right. And what about you, Anubhav?
Sure, Prashant. I come from a technology consulting background that I did for about 4 years pre-MBA. And I think that was 2014, 2015 was kind of the phase where the whole startup ecosystem in India was, I think it had been around for a while, but I think it was still kind of early days for the whole startup ecosystem where, Zomato, Swiggy's, et cetera of the world were just about sort of shaping up. And I think my sort of objective was post the MBA, I wanted to sort of kind of transition into a more general business management role within that ecosystem. So when I was looking at what MBA programs that I could consider, I think three large factors that came to mind. One, I wanted it to be a 1 year program. I think I didn't want to sort of invest the time and money required into a 2 year program because I had worked for 4 years. I kind of knew that a year should be good enough in terms of what I really am looking to gain out of the program. So that was one reason for kind of picking Oxford. Second, for me personally, was I always sort of wanted an international experience. Having studied all throughout my life in India, I wanted to go outside the country and experience what it really is like to study in a university that's been around for ages, has a lot of international students coming in, and just get that whole international experience once in the lifetime. So that was another reason. And third, obviously, I think it's a big brand to consider because coming back to India, you don't want to be associated with a university that people don't know about because it is anyway intense competition. So coming from a university that people recognize, that people understand in the country, I think that again is useful. So I think all these factors kind of influenced my decision to take Oxford in terms of what I really wanted to do.
Interesting. And you, Dev?
First of all, thanks a lot, Prashant, for having all three of us on this series. So just to give you a brief background about my pre-MBA profile, I did my undergrad in the US. I did a BBA, and then I moved back to India in 2010. I joined my family business. I'm the third generation. My grandfather started the business. We are in the forex, mainly financial services, but me and my dad managed the forex business. And so even after my undergrad, like the goal was always to come back to India, though it would have been nice to have a job abroad. But yeah, the ultimate goal was always to come back to India. So when I was looking at applying for my MBA, I had about 4 years of work experience, and I think I my post MBA plan was always to come back to India again and then again join the business. But when I was applying, it was mainly two or three things. Again, like Aniket and Anubhav said, a strong brand name, and I think Oxford uh, has a significant brand value in India. Number two, I was looking at diversity, like Aniket said, but I think in that the other important part where what I looked at was also the percentage of Indians that the program takes. And I think Oxford, INSEAD, a couple of these schools have a fairly high percentage of Indian and Asians that they take, because I was like, ultimately the goal is to come back to India, and it's always important to have friends, a network in India as well. So that was one of the other kickers, and like I think our class had about 30 to 35 odd Indians, and I think a significant portion is still back in India. So it's always good to be in touch with your friends, etc. And then obviously, I think for me, the third most important factor was to kind of have a good network. And when you go to a top college, you end up building a top network. Uh, you know, and I think it's safe to say that probably whichever country any of us visit, for whatever reason, I'm sure we will find some alumni somewhere. If not from I think from our class. Like I remember I went to Brazil for my honeymoon, and there was one Brazilian, and it's always great to catch up with friends who you've spent an entire year working closely together. So that was the other, a global alumni network is what also I was looking at.
Of course, and the fact that the Oxford brand is recognized everywhere, whether you go on work or otherwise, probably not on your honeymoon, but you certainly want to leverage the alumni network. Great. So interesting that most of you wanted to come back to India, and the fact that it is a 1 year program helps you make that transition very easy without a lot of financial burden on your head. Now, when you landed there, and of course, I remember some of the alumni, they have pleasant experiences. When they have an admit, they have these Oxford goodies coming in to their places, the Oxford pen and everything. So that must have made you feel good. But then, when you landed there, what were some of the most pleasant surprises you got, or what is something that you were really excited about?
I think the beer was awesome.
I'm sure.
No, but I think it's a magical place, man. It's if you've been a Harry Potter fan, it's kind of takes you to what it really is like. It can be sort of a bit overwhelming. So many colleges, so much happening all around you. But I think once you settle in, it's a beautiful city. It's a beautiful place, and I think 1 year is too short a time to actually just live through Oxford completely. I'm sure there are more than enough places that we haven't seen. But yeah, it's quite a magical place.
Okay.
I think the city is a fantastic blend. Just to add on to what Anubhav was saying, the city is a fantastic blend between a college town and you know, Oxford is largely a commercial city as well. So every morning when you're going to class, the business school is right next to the train station. So when you go at like 8:39 in the morning, you do see a lot of guys who come to their offices in Oxford. So I think it's not only a college town. So there's a ton of stuff. There's in fact a lot of guys from our class do end up getting opportunities in Oxford, but working in a startup or in another company, etc. And then, so I think, like Anubhav said, it's a magical place. Definitely something that you are in awe of every single time you're walking on those streets. Maybe in the first 1 month, but apart from that, it's not only a student town where apart from student life, there is nothing else.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with what the two of them said. I mean, I think even for me, the first thing that impressed me when I got there was I remember the day we got there. We reached there late one night, and the next morning we went for a walk. And I think in about 30 minutes, we realized we were already at the end of town. And you realize when you walk that whole stretch up and down, you realize, okay, you know all there is about this place already, which felt good in a lot of ways. Now, I was actually, even if you look at the other universities that I applied to, and I read a lot about the experiences people had in university towns, both in the US and Europe, versus studying in a university in the city. And I think a lot of people spoke about the fact that in a city you could become anonymous. I mean, you finish with class. As soon as class is done, you get lost somewhere in the city, and that's sort of about it. I think what excited me through the year was the fact that I mean, everybody was within literally whatever a 2 to 5 kilometer radius of you. No place was too far. You'd always bump into someone you know, and I think by the end of the year, a lot of us felt like this is our city or our place that we really sort of enjoyed. We knew every store, we knew every pub, we knew every beer, like Anubhav said, we knew which are the best places. So I think if most of us at the end of the year had to write a city guide to Oxford, I think we do better than a professional company coming there and sort of doing that. And that was great. And I think I'd always go back to seeing my photos to realize, hey, you know what, I can actually chart my way out from the university from the business school to this particular pub or this restaurant. And I'd love to go back just for that familiarity of walking past buildings that I really enjoyed walking past in my time.
So two words or two keywords that I hear a lot is beer and college town, which kind of does go on to show how close or what kind of opportunities it provides to bond together and to have a great time beyond just going to the business school. And especially as an Indian, I would imagine you think of a campus as a campus, but here you are in a city which is the entire campus. So very exciting, and I'm sure for Indians specifically, it will come as a pleasant surprise. So great points, guys. And what is also unique is the collegiate system there. So and when I heard when I learned about it for the first time, I did have to go on and research and still not understand it so easy. So you having experienced it, probably one of you, if you could explain what it is, and then the others could add on to how did you go about choosing your college, and what would be your advice to future admits who want to understand how to go about this entire process, because it is certainly unique to Oxford and probably Cambridge as well.
So the collegiate system, I think, began in Oxford and Cambridge. Um, it is so from an MBA perspective, the collegiate system, which college you go to, is not of prime importance. From what I understand, what is of the college that you go into for your bachelor's or your master, like your MSc or what in Oxford and Cambridge they got MPhil and DPhil, which is your PhD, uh, is important because all your coursework, classwork, the professors, the research that you do is connected with that particular college inside Oxford University. So as MBAs, it's not of prime importance because all your classes are in the business school, but you have to be associated because that with a college because that is the requirement of the university. So there are some colleges that you know are there are some colleges that are accept high number of MBAs, and I think most of
Right.
us,
So,
the
so
three
Dev,
of us,
before we go on, I have a question. So these are colleges where you stay and not where you study.
So for us, it is you have an option. For MBAs, you have an option, but for like I said, for the other courses, it you end up studying also not in the college, but like that's how like there are certain colleges which are famous for economics and policy and politics, and
Because
there are certain
what I would
there are
like to understand better is the fact that the idea of college and collegiate system is associated strongly with the concept of residence, which is not so
a part of
common
it is a
to
part of which is a
right.
part of because like I mean there are certain colleges like there are the two colleges that accept the most MBAs, Green Templeton and I think St. Hugh's, if I'm not mistaken. And me and Aniket were at St. Hugh's, and I just ended up picking a college, and I didn't even end up spending much time there because I didn't live there. I lived in college accommodation, but off campus.
Okay.
Aniket actually lived there, so he could, probably give some insight into living in a college and kind of doing all college activities. Though I don't know how much light he can shed on that.
Sure, yeah, I mean, I can talk about. I think actually, coincidentally, all three of us were part of St. Hugh's. So,
Oh, Anubhav,
Yeah.
oh, sorry, man.
so,
I thought you were incompetent for some odd reason. Sorry.
No.
so yeah, I think Dave was right in terms of the MBA sort of go towards selective colleges, and St. Hugh's is one of the popular ones. So yeah, I can talk about my experience. So I think the concept, to be totally honest, when it first came about in the college prospectus and all of that was definitely confusing, and even after graduating, I still say it's a confusing concept. So yeah, I mean, I think Prashant, like you said, I mean, with it being affiliated to residence, I think that's how I interpreted it initially as well. And I thought, so I actually I knew a few folks who got into Oxford the same time as I did, who had a completely different. I knew them prior to us joining as well. So and they had a completely different mindset to this, to at least what I was sort of looking at getting into. And I was quite sure that I wanted, if they have a setup like this, I want to see how best I could take advantage of it. So yeah, I specifically applied to residence within the college.
You have to apply for a
Yeah, you had to. That's largely to do with vacancy. So I think I think I got in the March or April round. So a lot of the good residences of the colleges that were more popular were also sort of filled out by them. So yes, I opted for this, and I was quite sure I wanted to stay on campus. I was talking earlier about how the whole city you can walk end to end within 30 minutes. So St. Hugh's was one of the colleges that was at the other end of the city. So it was a 25-minute walk from the business school. But I thought it's going to allow me to enjoy a campus within a campus, sort of like within the university town. And St. Hugh's was a lovely big campus that had undergrads, postgrads. I had people on my floor who were again people who were much younger and some people who were doing their PhDs and all. So it was good to always sort of run into them while you're cooking dinner or when you're just sort of going to the business school, etc. We also had a nice big library. We had what you call as common rooms, where uh, uh, common rooms are places where you sort of go there to sort of unwind. So we had a pool table, table tennis table, and a lot of books and board games, etc., where you probably end up on a Friday night. Most of these common rooms had their own bars as well, so which is actually which is interesting because it would be subsidized, so you'd have good quality drinks, but at lower rates for students from those colleges specifically. And I mean, that whole setup was quite nice. I mean, it wasn't meant to be a place for the university to sort of make money out of it. Actually, even the bars were run by students on a volunteerism basis. So and it was nice. I mean, I think I also, because I ended up playing with I was part of the university team for a sport called Ultimate Frisbee that I was so I played for Oxford there. The college appreciated that, and also because I was affiliated with the college but playing for the university, the college also covered all of my expenses pertaining to the sport for the entire year. So those sort of advantages that you got out of the college were sort of nice, and it felt it gave you that sense of belongingness associated with the college that I really sort of enjoyed over the course of the years.
interesting. And so there's that's a very good tip, that choose a college that has a bar as well.
All
Whereas,
colleges have bars.
sorry?
All colleges have bars.
If Oxford had its own way, all bars would have colleges as well. So I think drinking and I mean alcohol specifically in Oxford, you'll never see a shortage of it.
Interesting. And so, of course, that is the college experience, but then let us also move on to the business school experience, and
So,
probably
one more thing
moving on.
which might be helpful for incoming students, like Aniket said, the college subsidize his costs for ultimate frisbee. So what also a lot of students need to know, and this is something that's important to know before you start, you don't get to know it so easily, is that the business school organizes career treks to countries, and when there are for these treks, you can get some subsidization from the college as well. So like certain colleges, they will give you maybe 500 pounds or 1,000 pounds for the trip, because it's an educational trip or a career trip. So I'm not sure if Aniket or Anubhav took advantage of that. Neither did I. But we do from our class who did end up, taking advantage of this subsidy.
Right. So quite a few advantages of being associated with the right college, and of course, different colleges would have different focus areas. So depending on what is your focus area, you may research and apply to the right one.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so we were talking about beyond the college, the business school itself, and probably moving on to you, Abhinav, Anubhav. What what do you think there were some of the few courses or activities that you benefited the most from during your 1 year at the Saïd Business School?
Sure, Prashant. I think more than the courses, I think the biggest help to me was actually the career track that Dave just spoke about. So for me, I was pretty excited about the whole Indian startup ecosystem that we spoke about earlier. And I think I got a chance to actually come back to India and visit a few of these companies as part of that trek. And that is how I actually interviewed with Zomato and I got the offer that I finally did. So for me, actually, that I think was a big help that the career services team at the school organized. In addition to that, obviously, I think courses for me, I had a background in technology and ops, but I wanted to sort of move into a more business management role. So all the other subjects, be it sort of basics of finance, marketing, general management, personal professional relationships, etc., were all quite new to me. And I think a lot of that is something that you can leverage in your typical post B school jobs. Because everybody will come in with a certain kind of a skill set, but then because it's a pretty generic course, I think there will be areas of focus that everybody can really benefit from. So yeah, anything that you haven't done in your past life before would definitely help. So yeah, I think the career services track and subjects outside of your course area focus pre-MBA were definitely helpful.
Awesome. And so Dev and Aniket, so every school has, these one or two courses, for example, negotiation analysis or corporate finance. So there are one or two courses, either because they are delivered by a star professor or because the course is so interesting that really stand out, and you have almost every student bidding for it. So do you recall any such courses that were super popular at Oxford?
I think negotiations for sure.
Sorry? Hello?
Dave, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Hear me? Hello? Hello? Can you hear me?
No, we can't hear you there.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, perfect.
Sorry. So I like Anubhav said, negotiations was a very popular course. Also, I think I didn't end up taking private equity, but I think Aniket took private equity. Private equity was another popular course. But apart from that, I think for me the two most fun courses where I learned something really new, and I keep saying this was number one was operations, because I didn't have much exposure to operations before I came to business school. And I always thought that those who are running a manufacturing facility, it's as easy as just putting on one button, and your machine start working, and you never face any problem. But that's when I kind of realized that, and our professor was I think probably one of my favorite professors all year. Um, Unfortunately, he passed away a few years ago. And the other course that really stood out for me was entrepreneurial finance. I think that was another great course that was taught by Thomas Hellman. I think another great professor that who, and obviously negotiations. But these two are the courses that really kind of stood out for me in my year.
Okay.
For me, I think Anubhav and Dave covered covered a lot of the good courses, and I agree with both of them on all that they mentioned. A reason for why I applied to Oxford, and also specifically something to do with the course curriculum, was actually this is something outside of the course curriculum, but for which you still needed to spend time. So it is called as the SBA Seed Fund, and it's now rebranded as the Oxford Seed Fund. So, and this was actually one of the most important factors for me, even in the phase of deciding a school. So what the SBS or what the Oxford Seed Fund is, every year they pick about 9 to 10 students from the MBA batch. Actually, MBA and the MLF and the MFE batch. It's chosen by the outgoing batch from the previous year. And what they do is they give you £50,000 of real money and to invest into the Oxford ecosystem, to invest in startups in the Oxford ecosystem. The only criteria for investment is that the startup should have some sort of association with Oxford. So it could be by existing students, it could be ex-students, faculty, etc. But one of the people in the founding team must be from Oxford. So that was exciting for me. I was fortunate enough to be one of the people who was chosen for this thing. And so yeah, it meant a time commitment of about 5 to 10 hours every week, at least the first 2 terms, where you were creating, let's call it an investment philosophy of how you would go about picking the right startups. You would come up with a rating mechanism of once applications come in, how is it that you would filter them out, and then actually going about to the entire university and telling them that, hey, you know what, here's this money that the business school is going to give you if you sort of win this, or if you are selected, if you're one of the companies that are selected, and you can use it to sort of kickstart your venture. And we got, I think in my year, we got about 82 companies that, or 82 ideas and companies that applied for funding. And over the course of the next couple of months post that, we spoke to a lot of the entrepreneurs, spoke to a lot of the people who had applied for that funding, and eventually took a decision to fund 3 companies out of that. So we split up that £50,000 into 3 companies. And I think a lot of the courses that both Anubhav and Dave mentioned, like negotiation, entrepreneurial finance, etc., were all the theoretical stuff that we learned in class that we had an opportunity to sort of apply to take decisions to invest in these companies. And that to me was a very, very enriching experience.
Interesting. Of course, I mean, these are, and depending on what career path you're looking for, you may pick the right courses, but these sound, especially the negotiation course, sounds interesting when all of you mention about it. And of course, Anubhav, you mentioned that in terms of your job search and in terms of your career planning, the industry track or the career track helped a lot. So overall, and I understand all of you wanted to come back to India. Dave, you certainly had a family business, which was your focus. But Anubhav and Aniket, you wanted to, you were looking for an employment in India, and you came back. You were able to get good, exciting jobs with companies in India. So help us understand, how did you go about the job search, or for candidates who probably come back to India studying at one of the top schools, how does one go about job search in India? Because you don't have campus placements like you would have if you were at ISB or IIM. So are you at a disadvantage, or is there something that you should really learn about and pick as the best practice when you are going about looking for a job once you're back with your MBA in India? And of course, please add what you guys have been doing post your MBA, the companies that you're working with.
Sure. Prashant, I wouldn't sort of completely disagree that it is a little difficult. Obviously, it's not as straightforward as companies coming to you and one fine day everyone finds a job that they're looking for. So it does take time, it does take effort, but I think the important thing to understand is that the way I always say it is that pre-MBA you are at point A. You need to get to point C, which is post-MBA, and MBA will kind of take you there. So you need to have that A to B to C picture quite clear pretty soon into the MBA program. And once you've sort of realized that this is what you really want to do post the MBA, I think things that really help is kind of building a professional network. Which I think is also the right way to do things a lot of the times, because as you sort of keep growing in your career, you will not keep having placement days, right? So you need to get into the habit of creating your own professional network and sort of reaching out to the right kind of people that you think might be relevant to what the kind of work that you are trying to do. So I think, yeah, I mean, obviously reach out to your professional network as much as you can, write to people as much as you can. And, coming from a brand name that Oxford brings, I'm pretty sure that most of the people will not say no to a chat. And, more often than not, you will realize that companies that these guys are working on, there is something, if not immediately or in some time in the future, that could potentially open up doors to what you're really looking to do. So yeah, I think career trek for me personally helped a lot getting into Zomato, but I think there were enough companies that we could sort of speak to and leverage as part of the Oxford curriculum. So that kind of helped in managing the transition back to India for me at least.
Right. And so you started with Zomato, and then, of course, now, if I understand correct, you're working with WhatsApp.
Yes. So recently started with WhatsApp, but spent most of my post MBA time at Zomato, and Aniket was there as well. So maybe he can add to that experience too.
Right. But what is clear is that these are some very good brands to work with, and having an Oxford brand on your CV, having the Oxford experience added to your profile did help you get the right job in India.
Yeah, I mean, it depends, right? So there are certain companies, for example, big traditional FMCG companies, they already have their recruitment calendars full and they visit IIM and ISPs, and it's tough to sort of crack those. You can't sort of change that. But there are enough companies out there, typically most of these startups in this country, that don't have specific recruitment programs, that they would be going to an IIM every single year or an ISP every single year. And they, again, hire at very different levels as well, right? So they could hire somebody for 2 years experience to somebody with 10 years experience post MBA as well. So really depends upon what you're trying to do. Certain companies may not be accessible, but there are more than enough that are. It's just about sort of making that connect, and also kind of looking at it as a lateral placement versus a fresher trying to get a job in any of these companies. So yeah.
Right. And Aniket, you also worked with Zomato, but you started with another organization, and clearly you leveraged your peer network to move to Zomato. So tell us more about how you started in India. How was your job search, and any learnings that you had thereof?
No, so I think, like Anubhav said, I think the startup growth story in India was exciting. To be honest, I was okay with sort of looking for a job in the UK, and I did try that for a little bit, but I wanted the right job, and the right job meant wanting to get the right role within the right company, and I didn't think I could get that in that limited time period in the UK. So I came back to India, and like Anubhav said again, I don't think it was as easy as job offers just sort of land on your lap. It did take me some amount of time. I leveraged the alumni network, which was Anubhav in this case itself. He started off. He eventually, I ended up joining Zomato a year after he had joined. So it did take me about almost 6 months to find the right job where I was purely on a job search mode. I think, like Anubhav said again, the thing is the timing matters a lot. I think the Indian job ecosystem is still not, or it's you can call it as evolved to the standpoint that it sort of fits into the whole graduating calendar of these schools within India. But outside of that, for lateral placements, etc., there isn't a very straightforward calendar. I mean, you know that it'll come up. I mean, as and when openings do come up, you need to be lucky enough to find them at the right time, and you need to figure out the right way to get in. So I think it definitely helps when you have alumni, and the alumni network, like both Dev and Anubhav said, is strong in India. I think uh, in in Zomato, we had, it was easy to push that application through because of a classmate of mine. And even in the subsequent, and I ended up working there for 2 years, I joined another startup right after that called Bizongo, and I've been there for a little over 2 years now. And even there, I mean, I would say I would say getting into Bizongo was because of the image that Oxford had, and because of the image that Zomato had sort of given me through my first 2 years there. And again, I continue. I'm not overly active in the alumni network, but somebody else from Oxford in the subsequent batches has joined Bizongo as well. And again, I think definitely strong alumni network within the country sort of helps. And I think the brand name will otherwise help you definitely open doors for sure.
Right. And related to that, a while ago, Aniket, we were having a chat about UK extending the post-study work visa to a period of 2 years. And when you were there, it was about four months. So how do you compare that, especially given that you graduate in September and then you have to be sure that you'll have a job in the next 4 months or you'll have to come back, whereas now it is 2 years. So do you think it is going to add a lot of value, or what is your perspective there?
Definitely. I mean, I think with the way the world is sort of moving ahead, I think having more options in your plate does sort of help. So I think when we were I think there was always a case of having to make what do you call choices during the course of my MBA. I think people who really sort of manage the job situation well in terms of having a job, let's say in the UK itself, the day they graduated, were people who dedicatedly spent a lot of time over the course of the year trying to get their ideal job. And hats off to them uh, for all of the effort that they put in. But it's also important to sort of realize that the university and the time there is sort of limited or constrained to a large extent, and there is only X amount of things you can do in that 1 year there. For that, it meant for me at least to, I mean, I wanted to utilize the time to get to know or to enjoy the university experience a lot more, which meant I probably lost out a little bit in terms of the time period post graduation to apply, or time period during the academic year to apply for jobs, which then ineffectively or effectively it sort of meant I only had a 3.5 4 month window post graduation to really get that job. And between September and January, which was the period that we had, to be honest, a lot of the companies are also sort of having or sort of winding down in terms of growth and activity, at least for the year. I mean, companies that take the Christmas break and all of that very, very seriously. So, in effect, there isn't much happening between, let's say, mid-December and mid-January. And when you know that you have a timer at the end of January where you need to have a job in hand, it sort of makes that period actually a lot smaller. So, yeah, so I think people did still figure out how to uh, utilize that time period to get a job, but it isn't very, very easy. But then when you have a country like India doing so well and opportunities sort of opening up, which was the case, it didn't seem like the end of the world either. I mean, I think there was always something exciting to come back to. And in hindsight, I think whatever I've done since then has been exciting. And I'm not sure if I would have enjoyed an alternate path.
Right. And then you got to play frisbee as well. So overall, it's been a balanced experience.
That's good. That's good.
And interesting. And of course, really insightful advice on how that 4 month period coincided with the Christmas break. But then now that there's a 2 year extended, stay back period, so probably students have more time to look at the jobs beyond the Christmas period, and there is no timer running out. But certainly it's going to help, and hope that more people are willing to, or okay, or able to stay back in the UK. Of course, once the COVID situation improves, we don't know, maybe a year or two from now. Great. So glad to hear that all of you had great experience at Oxford. The overall experience. So beyond the campus and the beer, so what do you guys miss the most? Because now that you're back in India, I don't know if you have been able to go back there. It's been 5 years since you graduated, but when you think about it, probably starting from you, Dave, what do you miss the most from your time at Oxford?
I think I would have been happy doing a 5 year MBA, man. I think it's probably the last time you ever get to be a student for I think most of us, because I mean, very few of us, at least in this forum, I don't know about the others, but I'm definitely not doing any sort of PhD or anything like that yet. So I think it's the last time. So everyone is making the most of it, and apart from all the activities and the job search and the classes and everything, I think it's just the whole year you're hanging out with friends who you're going to be in touch for the rest of your life, and probably I think you know just being around everyone, just having a good time, de-stressing after on most days after a hectic day, uh, in some cases after a hectic exam week or whatever. But like uh, anytime you're in the library, you're walking around, you'd be like, okay, come on, let's go get a drink, and then you go to that pub, and there are five other MBAs, and then from eight drinking, it's just like an entire with each other all the time. It's probably the thing that I miss the most now. Everyone sort of passed
Sorry,
away.
Dev, we can't hear you so well.
Can you hear me now?
Not really.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
So I think, yeah, just the overall experience of hanging out with your friends and being around your friends for an entire 10 months is probably one of the things that I miss the most.
And the fact that you get to be a student again.
Oh,
Probably the
yeah,
last.
that apart from that.
Awesome. What about you, Anubhav?
Yeah, I think like they mentioned, it's the friends and the classmates probably top the list in terms of what I really miss right now. In addition to that, obviously, I think it's crazy 1 year from the dinners to the parties to the libraries to the crazy study hours, anything and everything to do with the MBA. I think all of us, if we could sort of get a chance to relive even a day of that, everybody would be up for it. So, yeah, I think friends and the classmates top the list, but everything around that is just great memories.
Yeah, perfect. And you
I
must.
mean, for me, sorry, Prashant, you're saying something?
No, I said you must be missing your frisbee sessions. Not so much
No, I mean,
opportunity.
I right now, yes, because of COVID, but no, I mean, I've managed to stay in touch with the sport, and I
Oh,
continue to play it competitively even today. So that's not. I mean, I think the year helped me not give up the sport. I think that helped me sort of continue on with it. But I think uh, the whole experience was exciting just because of uh, what all the place had to offer. I mean, I still remember there was this 1 week where we had Eric Schmidt, who was the CEO of Google at that time. He was launching a book, so he had come down and he'd spoken to us. We had Andrew Strauss, who was the former England cricketer captain, who was talking to all of us on leadership. We had a Nobel laureate, I think in chemistry, who was giving a talk somewhere. We had two other events. I can't remember what they were in that same week. And then that weekend, I went down to London because Federer was playing in the ATP Tour semi-final. So I mean, having an action-packed week like that, where you aren't really studying, but still feel that the nuggets of insights or information that you get from each of those things, and enjoy something like a great tennis match to watch
you get to
live. I
meet.
mean, I don't know if there are. Sorry.
Did you get to meet J.K. Rowling as well?
No, I don't think she had come down in the year that we were there. But yeah, I mean, I think we ended up, a lot of us have these fanboy sort of moments with a lot of esteemed people in their respective areas, and we've taken photographs with them, and just to sort of look at it years down the line and go back and like, wow, I was so close to this person, and even some of the insights that they shared from their career was impressive. I mean, I didn't, for instance, think that a Brian Lara, who happened to also come down at that point in time, could teach me so much on leadership or managing conflict within the West Indies cricket team. I mean, you look at him, or you look at all the highlight reels of West Indies cricket, and you think, okay, I mean, at most he's going to teach you how to play a cover drive. But I mean, he's also a person at the end of the day who's had his share of experiences, and he's the human side of him is what he is telling all of us, and there is enough to grasp from an encounter like that that you could use in your life. And I think those sort of experiences are invaluable, and I'm not sure if we'll have a concentrated sort of uh, stream of experiences like that in a packed period of time like we did in Oxford.
Right. And talking about Brian Lara, what I understand is playing on the green fields. If you're a cricket fan, that is also a great opportunity when you're there.
Oh, definitely. I mean, I think we ended up playing. I think most of us here ended up playing one game against London Business School at least, and then we all. I think surprisingly, none of us actually mentioned the best time of the year, which was the MBATs, which was a 3-day, 4-day sports festival in Paris. Sorry, yeah. So I mean, the sad part about the experience is most people say the best time in Oxford was the 4 days that you spent outside of Oxford. So, but I mean, but it was fantastic. I mean, we were like I think 200 people who took a bus from Oxford and went down to Paris for a 4-day weekend at the HEC campus to meet other business schools, and it was a sporting sort of festival, but with of course the typical MBA parties thrown in every night. And yeah, you had everything from cricket to football to, I mean, I think every sport, rowing and frisbee was there as well. And I mean, it was a fantastic experience, and I think a lot of us ended up coming back and playing for our respective colleges or used our college practices to also sort of get a good name for Oxford at the MBAs as well.
The person who made the most of the green fields of playing cricket was your brother.
I can imagine, and I envy him for that because I would love to play on a field like that. I have some pictures that I've seen, but yes, interesting that you and the fact that there was so much to do outside the school says the variety of opportunities that this 1 year opens up. So very exciting to learn about that. And obviously before we wrap up, because I'm talking to 3 successful Oxford alumni who a lot of applicants would look up to. So what would be your advice to candidates who are looking to apply to the Oxford MBA and, of course, to an MBA program in general as well? What would you advise them both in terms of approaching their school selection and planning their career?
I'll go first. So I think in terms of school selection, the piece that I did was, I was like, if I want to do an MBA, I want to do it at a top school. So it really, you really have to first define, and you may need to do it pen to paper as to what you want to get out of doing an MBA. I think that's the most important thing. And then go about your school selection in terms of, because there are too many permutation combinations in terms of which industry you want to get into post the MBA, where you want to work, do you want to settle there. So I think each individual person has their own perspective. So I think it would be really important, and if you have to do it pen to paper, do it pen to paper. See what your ultimate goal is post the MBA. The one and the most important advice that I got before I started my MBA was from another friend who had finished his MBA.
They adjust your mic again.
Again? Now?
Yeah.
So the most important advice is the same that I would give any MBA aspirant, was the same advice that I got from a friend, was that before I started the MBA, was that pick 3 things that you want to pursue during the MBA. It can be anything, right? It can be doing well in your classes, or making sure you're giving full attention in your classes or in your coursework, or jobs, or networking, or attending events, or whatever it is. Pick 3 things and focus your activities around those 3 things, because there are 100 things going on campus, and that feeling of FOMO is always there. So if you try to chase everything around campus, everything around every party or every activity or every company that comes for recruitment around, you're probably not going to end up anywhere. And I saw that. I didn't take his advice so seriously in the beginning, but after the first 3 weeks, I was like, I need to put myself together because I was just exhausting myself out day on day. And, then for the rest of the year, it helped me get a lot more focus in terms of what I really wanted to gain ultimately.
Right. Okay.
I mean, my advice would be treat it. I mean, I think you'll rarely hear about anybody doing a second MBA. So this is going to be, for most people, this is going to be the only time that you sort of spend to get that MBA. So picking the right college is important. So spend all your time that you need to pick the right university and the right course and what you can sort of get best out of it. And I mean, don't worry too much around. I mean, even in terms of tips for admission, etc. Like, I mean, I spoke about my passion for sports, etc. A lot of my applications were around that, and it's important to try and be honest to yourself. And when you're honest to yourself about what is it that really drives you and what is it that you're really passionate about, you have the best chance to sort of convince the other person also as to what is it that you want to really do. And you'll realize that rather than trying to force fit yourself into being in somebody else's shoe, if you were to follow your own path, you have a better chance of getting where you want to. So that was important for me. And and yeah, I mean, I think I completely agree with Dave. The whole FOMO aspect is very intimidating over the course of the year because there's literally so much to do. But yeah, I mean, I think for people who there were really focused people in our class who didn't attend classes because they wanted to just network, go to London almost every week to meet the right companies, etc. And I mean, great for them because they're in very happy jobs right now. And then there were people who used it to really sort of get the right friend network, professional and personal network, which meant probably having to spend a lot of time with your classmates, alumni, etc., and not really and giving that importance and probably compromising on some of the things from a career or academic standpoint. But I think it's important to know what you want and treat it as an investment for 10, 15,
Right.
20 years. Don't look to get everything out of it the day you graduate because then you will disappoint yourself. I think if you can realize that there is something from that 1 year that I can draw for the next 15, 20 years, I think you would have made the right choice.
Okay.
Cool. Prashant, so for me, I think there's not a lot to add from what Dev and Aniket have mentioned, but sort of key takeaways, 3 points I would say. One, can't stress enough on what Dave mentioned in terms of prioritizing things because you need to understand it's a 1 year program and things fly really quickly. So when it's a 2 year program, you still have the luxury of time to sort of think as to what you really want to do. And again, 100 things happening around you. So it's super important to sort of prioritize in terms of what your key focus areas are. It could be networking, it could be career, it could be having fun, whatever it is, right? So focus on those 3 things right from the start. Super important. Second, again, what Aniket was saying, I think while you're selecting your schools and application processes, it's really important to have a plan, right? I mean, obviously things change. It's not like if you put in your application saying that this is what I want to do, it's written on stone. But I think careers and admissions offices always appreciate people who are coming in with a plan. So like I mentioned, you are at point A, you need to get to point C, and this is B is the MBA that will kind of take you there, right? So just showcasing that you have a plan in mind is really helpful from an application point of view. Again, stay honest, stay true to yourself, because I've seen a lot of applications where everybody says I want to do management consulting or investment banking post my MBA, right? And if you ask them why, there are not enough strong answers, right? So
Right.
even if it is consulting that you want to do, make sure that you have a story around it, right? So this is what you were doing. This is why the MBA will help you get a management consulting job. Like, can you connect the dots looking backwards? So I think that is really important from an application point of view. And third and lastly, I think the only advice I would say is have fun, man. It's the time flies really quickly. You'll never get this time back. You're spending a lot of money to go there. So yeah, I mean, have as much fun as you can. These days will never come back. Yeah.
Great. So I think the key point that all three of you are trying to drive here is know what you want during your MBA as well as after your MBA. More so because it's a 1-year program going to kind of move on very quickly compared to a 2-year program. So, and of course, with the range of opportunities that Oxford opens up, so you really want to know what you want to engage yourself in and probably not lose time doing the wrong stuff. So that's great advice. Great to learn about the collegiate system. Great to learn about the courses and obviously the opportunities for sports and networking and the love for beer that Oxford helps you develop. So thank you guys for taking out time. It was great talking to you. Very good insights. And thanks again for taking out time on a Sunday morning. And hope you have a great time ahead.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Prashant.
Thanks, Prashant. Thanks.
This was fun giving it up with the classmates.
Yes. Okay. See you then. Catch up soon. Bye.